I said, no, I'm in charge. It was our exciting moment this morning on our ride.
And you get it's like you remind who's following, who's leading.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rider always needs to be in charge when you're on the back of a horse.
Yes.
Hi, this is the new streamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast #1 singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. How are you?
I am well.
Yes, I'm getting better. Just that the voice is deeper than usual because of this head cold. So enjoy it while it lasts.
I know, it sounds kind of sexy. I always thought it was kind of fun when my voice got a little deeper like Brenda Vaccaro. Well, I think it's kind of good timing since today we're going to talk about what are people's fantasies and how to figure them out and how to talk about them. Because
Also,
I
when to talk about them too.
and when for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the first thing I was going to say is I think it's really important to have gotten past all the real questions about what's really important to you, what's really important to the other person, about when you're dating and if you've decided to be in a relationship and what your plans are for the future. I mean, that is such an important foundation before you start talking about what you're fantasizing about, which
Hmm.
can be such a variety of things. You know, Barry and I are always happy to talk about sex, and that will certainly be included in this. And I was thinking too about just what do you imagine would be really something interesting to explore with somebody, you know, a trip or a conversation or a different way to approach something. I mean, really, it doesn't, as much as you and I think it's fun to talk about sexual fantasies, it also has to be, you know, what are your wishes and hopes and dreams? That's really part of the fantasy. It's stepping out of your comfort zone, being daring enough to say, you know, I would really like to talk about this, or I'd really like to do this thing with you, whether it's, you know, to take a class or do something, you know, that's just different out of the norm. I think people don't even explore that much of their fantasies because that's really what it is what would add a little zhuzh, a little spark, a little more interest that feels a little daring, which is funny when I ask people, you know, it's part of what my coaching is to ask them about their fantasies in general. And it's funny how people giggle. That's really a normal thing to do, to giggle. What is your fantasy? And then, yes, there's certainly been sexual ones, and it's been good about how many other things. And then people's voices kind of get soft, like it's really kind of a secret, and maybe somebody might be listening, even though when we're talking, it's only the two of us.
Right.
People are so hesitant to talk about what they'd really like. Have you found that with your coaching too, Barry?
Yeah. Although it's interesting with some people's fantasies, and I want to bring this up as a key part too, are things that I would look upon as being normal because some people have had such traumatic or challenging relationships in the past that what they hold as a normal relationship to them is a fantasy.
Yep.
So part of this conversation is really about what is possible.
Hmm.
Because in some cases, yes, like you were saying earlier about, you want to get past certain hurdles before you start talking about the really fun stuff, like, for kinky stuff or sexual stuff, whatever it is. But some of your fantasies might be to have a partner who travels with you internationally. You can sing the first date happily. So
Yeah.
the conversation about fantasies is a spectrum of things, certainly, because there are so many things that we hold sacred, special, unusual inside ourselves. There's somebody else that's perfectly normal.
Hmm.
And so in some ways, it's almost like you want to find somebody who can meet you where you are and not be shaken or flabbergasted at what you suggest as something unusual, you know?
Yeah. I love that you talk about that because that's something that's so essential to you. You want someone who has already experienced some travel, has a bunch of stamps in their passport, and is excited about doing more.
Mm-hmm.
And it is amazing the people who haven't thought about it or are really afraid about it or couldn't even imagine doing it. And so then that part of your fantasy and theirs wouldn't be a match for sure.
Right.
And that somebody who wants to have a real religious home, or somebody who wants to do very traditional things with a family. I mean, that can feel unattainable, which is what a lot of fantasies can feel like, something that you can't
Yeah,
have.
absolutely.
So, as we talk about a lot, is to start out with yourself. What is the thing that you would really like that would make your life feel even more fulfilled, including another person? Because we've talked a lot about how the things you can go out and do on your own that'll encourage you to meet other people and just give you a more fulfilling life on your own, about volunteering and taking a class and joining activities, and the opportunity to meet people is great. What we're talking about generally is including another person in this fantasy that you have. And what would that be? What would make you feel more connected, more cared about, more heard, more listened to? And across the board, pretty even men and women, which I was kind of surprised about when I have this conversation, is long kissing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been so fun to have so many people pretty early in their list talk about, I really want to just make out like when I was a teenager. Because, supposedly that was what most of us were at least doing in the beginning.
Indeed,
And
yes.
it was so exciting and fun. And, you'd park someplace and your windows would get all fogged up. And it was so exciting. It was so a little forbidden then. And I think people really want to capture that. And I really know how connected it can feel, because
Yeah,
it's not just that your lips are touching. Generally, a lot of your body is touching. You're close and you're holding and you're relaxing into each other. And I think a lot of people get out of that habit. It's a little peck before you leave. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound really shocking, but I'm allowed to do that. A lot of the widowed people are constantly thinking, did they kiss goodbye if somebody left and then died and didn't come home? What
right.
was the last words they said, and did they kiss goodbye? So I recommend people never pass up a chance to really kiss goodbye every time. My
Absolutely.
grandparents, they both died in their 90s. It was a second marriage for both of them. And they always kissed all the time. But what cracked me up is that she would always kiss before they go somewhere in the car. And then I rode with him and I thought, oh, I wonder if it's because she's afraid, because he was kind of a scary driver. But I loved, into their 90s. They
Mm-hmm.
kissed hello. They kissed when she put dinner down on the table when we'd be there. They kissed goodbye. I mean, I
Yeah.
loved that about them. It was such a good example for me because my parents didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I love that. That's a really great model and example to have in your life. But the thing for me, and where I see this from another point of view, is that passionate, intimate kissing, because it is very intimate. It's something a lot of couples don't do because they go straight from just, you know, a quick French kiss and then it's straight to bed. There's no in between to actually linger in that space, that which basically is what foreplay really should be, is that lingering in that wonderful intimate space and exploring and knowing each other and being more intimate, even with clothes on. Is something that can definitely be a fantasy, because some people have never had that experience or have had it since they, as you said, were teenagers,
Mhm.
because they've gotten to the point where being an adult, they should do it a certain way, which is a whole bunch of rules that we run. So to switch gears and to entertain the fantasy of being playfully intimate and taking your time without having to be an end result. And I'll just say from the men's side of things, we have a challenge as men because we always focus on the end result. So we want to get it done. It's like a job. Yes, I'm sorry to make it that blatant. But when we take a woman to bed, or go to bed with a woman, we are often focused on the end result versus the journey. Sometimes it takes the woman's wherewithal and understanding to say, hang on a second, we should enjoy the journey. Let's make the journey worthwhile.
Mhm.
So there's a whole bunch of things that can be done in between the idea and that result that can be filled out. So there's a whole expression. So it's not just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type thing,
And certainly kissing is a big part of it. I mean,
Yeah,
not just kissing on the lips, but there's so many places on both of our bodies to do
indeed.
kissing. Yeah. And so I just have needed to say that because in my little world of my little surveys, pretty equally, men and women have talked about wanting longer, more often, more passionate kissing. And I was really excited to hear about that. It was really fun because I think a lot of women think that men don't think that. And I'm here to say, yep, turns out you do.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So another piece of I'll drop in there as well is the idea of doing things together, because another part of this conversation is that for people who've been in a long-term relationship or who were widowed and lost a partner, as much as it is for somebody who's been single a long time, there are certain things they want to do with somebody, but they long for that maybe they never had because their partner they were with never let them do it. Or something they've had a chance to do anybody because they've been alone for a long time. Either side of the conversation, there are closely held wishes and dreams that we've buried down inside. Oh, there's Gigi going by.
Hello, Miss Gigi.
For those listening on the podcast, haven't heard us before. That's Christine's cat that like walking by every time I'm on my voice on the podcast.
She likes, even with your cold, she knows your voice.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, so getting back to the point. So having those tightly held fantasies of things that we never did because we've been alone for a long time, speaking for myself, or have been either our partner had never did it with us, or it's been a while since we lost our partner, so we are regretting that we don't have a chance to do it again with them. Those fantasies are such heartfelt and oftentimes almost is it impossible again inside that wishful thinking idea. So to understand that those fantasies that we hold, again, not talking about kink or sex necessarily, but having someone say, you know, I'd love to go for a hike up the mountains, or I'd like to go horse riding with them, or I'd like to, all these things we want to do that we've put off because we didn't have the partner to do it with. Mm-hmm. Those can be fantasies that we want to cash in, so to speak.
Yeah. And if you're not currently in a relationship, which a number of the people are that listen and watch our podcast, make a list. Think of the things that when you're in a relationship, it's one of the things I talk about with my clients is think about what things you fantasize about doing with a partner that you've done before or wished you'd had somebody to do with before. Because during school, we'd always say, oh my God, there's no time to do stuff. We have stuff we want to do. And Mom said, write it down. Because what would inevitably happen in summertime, we're so bored, we don't know what to do. She goes, go back to the list. So that's why we are so good about lists, because when you get all in the throes of a relationship, you might forget some of those things. So it'd be nice to have that little list tucked away about, I'd like to take Tai Chi with them, or I'd like to take a painting class. And nobody has to be good at anything. It's just fun to do it together. And what's fun is one person might be a little better than the other at one thing, and then the other person's better at the other thing. And then you get to do it together and talk about it. And we never say do everything together. You need your separate interests. I think people forget to figure out to do stuff together.
Right.
It's good for us to have our separate interests, and it's also good to figure out how to do some things together. Even if we're going to take a walk every night after dinner, and we're going to pick a subject to talk about. You know, we'll talk about our days, but it'll be your turn to pick a subject and your turn to pick a subject. I mean, that could be something that you're fantasizing about. I would just like this one-on-one time with them and to talk about something besides work and the kids and taxes right now. So say that out loud. Say, this is what would really make me happy. This is something I really need to feel more connected to you. Because that's often what we would label fantasy is the thing, as you said so eloquently, we've wished and hoped and tucked it away, and we don't share it. And if it's somebody that you're thinking about having a future with, you need to figure out how to be comfortable saying things that you really need and want. Now, nobody has to say, yes, 100%, I'm fine doing it exactly the way you said. Never. Especially when we move into the kinky stuff, because you never have to do anything. You definitely have to have safe words, and there's all the outs. So,
absolutely.
Staying back in this much more benign place, you can say, yeah, I'm okay taking a painting class. It's not really my thing, and I wouldn't want to go every week. Would it be okay if I went like once a month or once a quarter? Would you be okay with that? And maybe that's enough. That's how you have that conversation. What's good enough?
Right.
but still say what it is you'd really like. Because you never know. They go, I've always wanted to do that, but I don't know if I'd really be good at it. And I guess it's okay if I go and I'm not good at it, because it'll be fun to do it with you. Because you hope you like the person that you're hanging out with and you want to spend time doing stuff with them. It's sad when you see these relationships that have deteriorated and we're just roommates and we pass in the night and we, hardly ever talk about anything. Right. Well, that's just tragic. So if you start doing this right now, even with a practice with a friend, gosh, I really want to go do this. Would you like to go do this with me? Mm-hmm. That you would be good at it in a relationship. And if you're in a relationship and you're wondering and you're feeling kind of the doldrums, come up with something to suggest. Oh, I know they'll never want to do it. Have you asked? That's my famous question. I'm always going, have you asked? I know them really well. They might say no, but they might say yes, or they might say maybe if we did it this way. Go ask. And always, if you say, this is really important to me, or this would make me so happy, and I really want to do this with you. If this person cares anything about you, and they need to if you're going to be staying with them, I can't imagine them not going, all right, I'll give it a try. You don't need to jump up and down and be all excited as much as I am. You're willing to go, I'm happy.
And the thing about that too is that those fantasies you hold, those things you want to do, you may not have done your own yet. You may be waiting for a partner to do those things with, in which case you're both novices. Yeah. So it's actually easier in some ways to say, I always want to do this, never have. But you want to start at the beginning and be a novice like myself and do it together, because that can be fun as well, because you both are stumbling over it, making mistakes and laughing about it the whole way through. So why not?
And laughing is the best. Yeah, I had a couple that we went through this whole list of stuff, and there was a variety of reasons, nothing was gelling. And so I just threw out an improv class. They had the best time. Mm-hmm. They had the best time. And they both thought they would be really bad at it. I said, well, if you're going to be equally bad, go do it. But be equally bad. Work at being bad together. This way, nobody's better. They, surprisingly to all of us, loved it. Mm-hmm. So you never know. Just throw something out, or ask your friends if they're doing stuff. What are they doing? I mean, all the rage right now is pickleball. So people are out there doing it and turning into these competitive people. But you never know what there might be out there to give you an additional connection, an additional way of feeling connected as a couple, and like re-sparking, because now you have this new thing to talk about.
I mean, some of the things that are so simple in a way that aren't necessarily fantasies, but just things we may not have thought about doing. Could be like ballroom dancing or cooking classes, or even doing basic tantra breathing classes can be powerful. Like we talked about earlier about kissing and having that intimacy over long term. Real basic tantra is not naked skins. It's about breathing together. It's about being together. It's about connecting, which for some people is a fantasy beyond their comfort zone because they haven't done it before. So to understand that the idea of fantasy covers such a gamut, such a range of possibilities that we may not have entertained up to this point. It's such a game changer, because for some of us, we haven't entertained those things because again, we haven't been in a relationship or whatever that is. So when someone says, what do you want to do? What's your fantasy? And I said, like you said, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's about write them down, put them somewhere we can get to them, because they pass the by, just have downloads, and you go, oh yeah, let's do that. And then it disappears because you haven't thought about it for 2 minutes. So to write those things down in a central place. So when you go out with somebody and they start asking, you start checking those things, and you go, well, I want to do those things with this person. Because that can also be one of your gauges to see if the person's the right person to be with as well, frankly. Mm-hmm. Some of the things I'm talking about here, you definitely can talk about on the first date. In fact, you might want to, just to gauge where the person is. So it can be, in some ways, these fantasies, not the really weird, bizarre ones, but the simple ones, can be really great educational research questions you can have with your first time date to know if they're on the same page as you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just very carefully worded questions.
Yes, indeed.
I was thinking, over the years, I had another couple who took flying lessons. Mm-hmm. One of them said, I always wanted to, and the other said, I never thought about it. Okay. And then the other couple went and took trapeze lessons, different kind of flying.
Yes.
Yeah, and it turned out one of them really liked it, and then it was like, so didn't like that, but she ended up doing something else. I was trying to remember what it was. It was something else they taught in the circus class. It's escaping my mind because it was probably just so not me. But it was so fun to have this completely thinking out of the box thing, and they were both willing, and that they were okay with, okay, I'm going to go over here and do this, and I'm going to keep doing this, because it was still in the same atmosphere. Oh, it was tightrope. She went and did the tightrope walking. That's what it was.
Okay.
I know. She liked that so much better than the flying part.
Mm-hmm.
So how cool is that? And they apparently they have circus classes, so you could go take them. And how fun is that? And I said, oh, and you wear leotards, because I think leotards are very sexy.
But the thing about that is that it isn't a hard no. It's just like, not quite that, but what about this? It's that adjustment and having that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it was a cooking class, for example, we might discover one of you is really good at being the sous chef and good at preparation. The other person is much better at the finishing touches and the sauces.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that you can do things together that aren't exactly copying each other or duplicating each other can be much healthier too, because you then explore and find do things in life that are additive to each other and they fit together really well.
Yep. So now we're going to pretend you're in a committed relationship, and the next kind of fantasy you want to talk about is what kind of new, it goes under the category of kinky thing, have you always wanted to try with another person that might be like a tiny little step?
Mm-hmm.
And to broach it, you know, how would you feel about a blindfold? How would you feel about if I gently tied you up or you gently tied me up? I mean, those are the first things I've discussed with couples who said they wanted some suggestions. And I said, and it's the other person puts it on so that they feel like they're in control, especially the blindfold. You can always take it off. There's nothing permanent. And the ties are very loose in the beginning. You can really take your hands out easily. And you build up the safety and the comfort.
Trust.
And what's trust, 100%. And what's so cool about it is if whoever the person, so in that world, there's a dominant and a submissive. It's just the person doing the action and the person that's letting the action done to them. I mean, in that world, it can get very extreme. So I'm starting out with just it's the easiest way to categorize it. So that the person who's the submissive, the person that's allowing to be tied up or to be blindfolded, it's freeing if you can feel relaxed. It's a very altered place to feel in the world. It's a way to feel like you finally for 10 minutes, half an hour, have given up not control of who you are, but control of having to control things. You don't have to control. You're not out of control, but you don't have to be in control.
Yeah.
And for people that are in very high power positions, I have found they've eased into it better than they've ever expected, because they're used to being in control. They like being in control. And then to have somebody they totally trust and they feel very comfortable with, completely safe, they're like, wow, it was so nice to not have to do anything except what they asked of me or what they did to me. And people can get have very positive experiences from it if the circumstances are right and you ease into it.
The key thing is circumstances being right, because the thing is, one partner might be so experienced in doing this or so gung-ho, they don't recognize that they need to keep the trust going. Because the thing is, that only about trust being a key part. It is the cornerstone of this work, that if you are choosing to go into some new adventurous places that at least one of the partners has never been in before, it has to be done with integrity and with safety, with trust and that openness. And it is something where the submissive in this conversation has dominion. So even though they are the one that's not in control, that's basically just being the passenger in a sense, they still get to control the speed, the pace of this, because the other person may be so excited they want to go to the next level, next level, next level in 10 minutes. And the other person's like, hang on a second, can I just get used to this level? So having that trust and that communication, and we've said that like 3 main ingredients of like honesty, trust, and communication are 3 components of relationship, period. But having those in this conversation especially is what allows the trust to increase, but also the fulfillment and the joyfulness as well. So it's worth doing the right way.
So important. So the Dom in this case keeps checking in. How you doing? How you doing? Are you comfortable? Do you need anything else? Do you need something different? Do you need anything more? And the sub is always, I'm okay. This is fine. You can move forward. Especially the first few times, there needs tons of communication. Tons. And to have permission of, yeah, that's enough. I can't do that part anymore. I need to stop, be done, or I need to stop and back up, or I need to move forward in smaller increments. And when the communication stays completely slow and open, it's lovely. It's really lovely. And everybody has their what I'm in the mood for today or ever. And everybody has to honor that. So that you'll say, gosh, I want a longer time today. I'd like a shorter time today. I want to be the dominant one. Are you willing to be the submissive one? I would like to try something new. I want to go back to the thing that we did before, so that you have total 100% everybody, the no rules. Yes can never rule. The no has to always rule, no matter who's doing no and why they're doing no. And there's no question about what no is. The no has all the power. And that's when people are able to reach whatever levels are comfortable for them, when they know they have the power to say no.
And also sometimes it could be the dominant, in fact, says no, because they might discover the submissive wants to go further than they want to. So it's not about one side only. This is definitely a two-way street.
That's why it's always the no matter who the no is. Yeah.
Exactly, absolutely. And so that's the key. Again, that communication and the trust and building that place. The thing is that the area of fantasies in general, especially in this particular area of it, is there are some wonderful benefits that the relationship can grow from and thrive from. That these fantasies, not just you have the experience to go, well, that was great, that was wonderful. It's about the level of trust you have with each other, and the communication you have with each other, and the level of safety you have with each other are just huge developments in the relationship. And so the power of these explorations isn't just to get your kink out. I mean, yes, it can be, but also it can be the way of building a level of depth in the relationship that you may not have experienced before. So be willing to explore it in the way that works for you. And yes, the no definitely rules.
Boy, depth. That is so unimaginable. The depth that's available if both people stay, on the same wavelength, at the same path, and the same, okay, we need to back up more and do less. As long as you're staying completely in touch with yourself, what do I need and want? What's okay, what's not okay? I can change my mind before, during, and after. Everybody can change their mind. That is 100% okay. And that you need to say it out loud. You cannot not say it out loud. And the other person needs to be okay with anything you say out loud. So this is the conversation you have ahead of time about, okay, anything I say is okay. Don't have to do it. You just get to say it. You get to say, gosh, I'd really like this. I don't want that. I'd like this instead. And then people think, are we talking? I said the whole time, a lot of talking. I mean, it turns into times when you aren't able to talk because there's so much happening and you're making other sounds. But up to that point, you're fine. You probably don't need to say anymore. But to get to that point, you need to talk a lot. And, when you talked about laughing, I thought, when we get to this point, oh my God, if you do this that way, there are times when you just burst into laughter. You can't even function for the moment because you're both laughing so hard about, oh my God, I thought you meant this. And oh, you said that. And oh, I can't put my knee there or my elbow there. That isn't going to work that way. And oh, that's so funny. Because this is not brain surgery. It's kind of like a science experiment more.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, because you're trying new things. I mean, you could try food. I mean, get a sheet of plastic and put down wherever you are if you're going to play with food.
Well, 9.5 weeks.
That's the hard way, yeah. You get sheets of plastic at Home Depot without a problem. Just want you to know. Little
You've done some research.
Announcement, yes. But food is really fun. Different massage oils is really fun. Things that heat up, things that cool down. I mean, there's lots of things to try and go, well, that was an epic fail. That didn't work at all. That was too sticky or too wet or too cold or too whatever. And at least you tried. You tried something new. And then there are lots of websites that have toys, lots of toys, lots of toys. And you can look it up by categories. You can look it up by men or women or couples or oh my God. And then there's lots of videos. Google, who's done that? There's a video for anything you could ever imagine somebody's done, more than I would ever imagine doing, but it's out there. And what did they do? How did they try it? What kind of things worked for them? And what's fun is you're doing this together and you're getting turned on together and you're on this mission together to find this fun thing and try this fun thing. And how could that not be good? I mean, really?
Right. I think you sound like you've done a lot of research in this, which cracks me up.
It's one of my favorite subjects to research. Yes, I've done. Well, I have to do it for my clients, And a little personal experience now and then, for sure.
Indeed. Again, this thing that's wonderful about relationships. Well, I've said it before, but saying now is the opportunity to explore new ways of being in partnership that you get to really enjoy and embrace. Are so profound when you start to look at how they can work for you. This one of the things I love about this topic is that we are sometimes just dating from a very surface point of view. And so this conversation could be very triggering for some people watching this, not because it's weird or it's X-rated, because that's their frame of reference or it's outside their comfort zone. Yeah. And if you're looking for a relationship and you have maybe a very closeted viewpoint from way before, or you have or just simply haven't trusted your partner enough to explore or ask what you really want. If you're single whilst you're watching this, I'm going to say this right now, is what we talked about earlier about the lists, all these ideas, is if you have held some deeply held secret place inside where you weren't willing to trust anybody with the information you have, it's time to bring it out for your own self to see it and look in the mirror and go, is this what I really want? The second piece of that is also, are you willing to add it to your list of what you want in a relationship? We talked about the red flags and green flags before. It's about what you want, what you don't want, what does work, what doesn't work. Those fantasies you have that you finally unearthed and you've exhumed can be things that maybe you want to have as part of the green flag list, those things that you must have in the next relationship that you will bring up fairly early on to know if this person is someone you want to be with. Because again, this whole thing about relationship isn't just chemistry. It's really navigating the comfort and the ease and the connection to see if there's going to be alignment. And if that's part of it, it's vital because, as we said, the availability of trust and intimacy and safety and communication that can be expressed and opened up in these levels of intimacy and fantasies that you play can take your relationship to a level you never had before. So absolutely understand this is part of the conversation about dating for yourself, and to understand as a single person why you want to have this in your awareness too.
So important, Barry, as always. Thank you.
Of course.
So the next level, which I have not done, I certainly have a number of friends have, to include other people. If that's something you're thinking about, bring it up. It was really interesting. I have a friend who actually did a whole podcast on her and her husband becoming polyamorous. It's what she does, makes podcasts. So she had a podcast about it, which was so helpful to talk about the conversation they had to have and the rules they had to have and the conversations they had to have with the peripheral people and the rules they had with them. which was interesting to learn about. And I was like, well, good. If I ever have a client, I will now know what to say, because so far in my life, that has not been something that I've needed or wanted, but I have no problem with it. And if you're thinking about it, put it on your list. You never know. I mean, they'd been married a long time, and both of them thought of it kind of at the same time, but hadn't said it, and then finally said it, and they both went, I was thinking that too. So there you go. So you never know. You never know what kind of thing, as long as it's only consulting adults, I don't care. If you're all over 18, over 21, and everybody's okay with whatever it is you're doing, have at it.
Yeah.
And have a conversation about it with yourself, with your significant other, if you have one, and then really good conversations with whoever you want to include. And because, boy, as human beings, we get in our feelings, and they can really cause a lot of havoc.
Yes.
And you can all say, okay, I think I'm really cool in the beginning. This couple happened to be fine all the way through, but I've certainly heard of others that they got part of the way through, and like, I started catching feelings for the other person, or I started having a problem they were with another. You still have to talk about it. You've already got this great foundation, because your fantasy is not to be jealous. Your fantasy doesn't include being mad at the other person. If you have this fantasy that you think it would be fun to include other people and it isn't working out, you need to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Oh, see, there's another no that gets to carry the vote.
Well, that's part of this conversation too, is you're also willing, because some of these fantasies have never been expressed before, so you don't know if they're going to work out. So it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to say, you know what, this wasn't the way I thought it was going to work. I don't want to do this anymore, or change it. And that's the thing. And your partner has to be okay with that. It's the other part too, because otherwise that relationship is really is on eggshells, basically, or is on, uneven ground if you and your partner don't see eye to eye in this thing. So having the understanding that these fantasies are not fast, like stuck in place, never changing type things. It's all part of the exploration. Because in some ways, a relationship thrives better when there's new territory to explore, new ways of being together, which is what it's about as well. And again, this is not saying just fantasy is the only way, but this is a piece of the conversation to understand that having fantasies that you have and being okay with them, first of all, and then trusting you can have a partner that you can talk to about these things is part of this wonderful gift of what a relationship can bring to you. So definitely look at how you can play and how you can find that match up with somebody who understands where you're coming from and can meet you there.
And that's certainly the groundwork of dating and the groundwork of getting to know each other over that first 6 months, the first year, the first 2 years, as you're saying, yeah, I think this is my person. I think I really want to stay with them for the rest of both of our days. That you've felt safe and comfortable enough to say, I really know me, and this is what I'm thinking that I'm going to need. And how do you feel about that? And could you be okay with the same thing? And to practice getting really clear about what you want and saying it out loud in increments is essential. Because for all the people I know that have done any of the things that we're talking about, it's because they had a foundation of having a conversation before about what they really need and want in a relationship and what the other person needed and wanted. And they didn't even have to be the same, and they were okay with what the other person needed and wanted. And it has to continually be discussed, because, well, you changed your mind. Yeah, I guess I did. And I'm letting you know I changed my mind. I realize it's going to upset the apple cart, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And now that I know it, I need to say, this isn't working for me this way. I could maybe do it this way instead, or I can't do it that way at all. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I've seen it happen, and it's sad and hard. And the people that have gotten through it, gotten to the other side of it, was because they'd already had enough comfort and respect and a track record of going, okay, I get it. It's you. Okay. I love you. This is part of you. It's a new part of you. Wow. We could both wish it was different. It's not okay. And the ones that aren't, they have split up. It's sad. They've split up over this. This has been a really hard thing that people really thought they knew enough, and that you have to stay on top of. I didn't know.
And that's the honesty about understanding this is part of the challenge, is we make a lot of assumptions about people when we get into a relationship with them. We talked about that before on our previous podcast. And so understanding this is such a cornerstone of the conversation, is understanding the range of possibility and the communication that works both ways, that allows for this level of depth with each other. Because relationship ideally is a deep, deep union between two people, usually two people. We haven't talked about that, but not polyamory piece before. But where there's a definite recognition that the depth you go to is only as far as you're willing to go yourself.
And what I know personally and what I've experienced with my clients is the depth is unimaginable. That's a part where you can say, I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, where you can go in the most positive way as a person and as a couple. Oh, it's amazing.
Indeed.
If you'll allow it. And you have to allow the bumps along the way too. Yeah. It's very daring. I tell people I am impressed with whatever brave conversations they have. You know, it doesn't always have to be about sex, and it certainly doesn't have to be about being with another person. Right. Just revealing who you are. It's scary. It's very scary, because what if they don't like it? What if they don't like it enough that they might leave? That's very scary. And not being your whole authentic self with this person that you're saying you want to spend the rest of your life with. I highly recommend not doing it that way.
Indeed. I mean, part of it, part of it I want to just throw in there is also that there's got to be a level of safety. So if you make mistakes, it's not the end of everything. There's this definitely part of us. I know I had this one for a long time myself, was the fear about making a mistake. So I want to be perfect all the time and try to keep things together so there's no risk or any chance of making a mistake. Yeah. And having that safety within the frame of the relationship where both partners can make mistakes and be accepted for that. I mean, within reason, of course, but where they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, it's a relief, frankly, if you find a partner who will do that with you.
Mm-hmm. So fantasies, as you've heard, are a wide range.
Yes.
Of things that would make you feel more whole, things that would help expand you, things that you find that would make you even more of who you already are. Say them out loud to the person that you are in love with, and say that they're in love with you back. Because you never know what they could add to that or expand on that, and that opening themselves, that gives them a chance to feel like they could be safe to open themselves up about you. Absolutely. And to go, oh, it's not that I'm not enough. It's that they want us both to be more. If we try this painting class or sex toys, I mean, whatever it is, to just have the conversation. And if it's an absolute no, you need to honor yourself, and they need to go, sucks, but it's an absolute no. You need to at least say it. I'd really, really like to do this with you. I think it would make us both happy. It's not just all about me. It's making our relationship better, us happier together. I think it will broaden both of us if we go do this thing together. So, boy, it'll be so interesting. I'd love to hear what people think after they listen to this. What sorts of things they've been. Tell us what your fantasies are, the things that you've always wanted to tell somebody else. We'll help you come up with a way of telling them.
This will definitely generate some interesting responses, I trust.
Don't you think? I think so. I was really excited to have this subject this week, because I thought people trust us and they tell us their innermost thoughts. And so sometimes we can do is help prepare them to have the conversation with somebody else that they've been afraid or nervous or concerned, or they just didn't have the words. Sometimes that you just don't know how to say it.
Right.
So we know how to say it, huh?
Indeed. Speaking of which.
Out loud. We know how to say it out loud.
Indeed.
So if you have a fantasy that you want to tell me about, and I would be happy to have you tell the other person in your life about it, I would be happy to have you go to my website and click on it. So my website is www.theperfectcatch.com, and click on What's Holding You Back from Love. And then you'll answer 10 brief questions, and then you'll have access to my calendar, and we can have a confidential conversation about what? Let's get clear. Maybe you don't even know what your fantasies are. I'd love to help you explore them and get them written down so that when you are dating, you could have a conversation, or if you're in a relationship, you could learn how to ask for them and maybe get them, maybe get some of them, a lot of them. You could also send me a personal email about your fantasies as well, and I'm happy to help you explore them through at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And when you're on my website, I'd be so grateful if you would sign up for my newsletter so that you can get repeats of this podcast. And then also, if you scroll to the bottom of my homepage, you can click on all my social media icons for Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter X and Pinterest and YouTube. Is that them all?
I think so.
Okay, good job, Christine. Well, Gary, tell people how to talk to you about their challenges with their fantasies.
All the fantasies they want to exhibit, yes. So like an email as well. So my website is my name, which is barryselby.com. On the homepage, there's a link to get on my calendar, and similarly, you can have a chat with me and see where you want to go. There's still some questions you have to answer first. And that will set up a time for a 20-minute conversation that we can discuss where you are and where we want to go. And also, if you have some fantasies you want to talk about and get some clarity on if they're safe or if they work or those sort of things, you can also, on the website, at the bottom of the screen, you can click on the box at the bottom to join my email list, because I do send out weekly emails, same as Christine, with the replays of the show, other things I'm doing, the links to all my stuff I'm doing with everything on my calendar and everything as well. You can send me an email at barry@barryselby.com. And I also have, quick reminder, the quiz that I created, the relationship readiness assessment is running strong. I just changed some of the imagery because a friend of mine said, they need to be more smiling. So I just changed the imagery to be more receptive. So if you go to barryselby.com/quiz, you can check your relationship readiness assessment. They let me know how it goes for you, because some of those questions will unearth things you may not have been ready for. So I recommend that. On my social media side, all my social media is my name, except for Instagram and Threads. So it's Barry Selby on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, Pinterest. On Instagram and Threads is the real Barry Selby. And check out my stuff. Follow us on social media. Reach out if you want some help. And definitely share this with your friends, because frankly, this conversation may push some buttons of people you know. That may be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And you could share it with the person you're in a relationship with and see if it sparks a conversation, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you can see us on Roku and Apple TV, right? And then on, you can listen to us, you can take us with you on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the streaming places that you're on. And we'd love for you to like and subscribe to our podcast and truly share them with your friends. Don't you think everybody's going to find this a fascinating conversation? I
should think so. Yes, absolutely.
And then we're here every week talking about another fascinating subject at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. So you can tune in live, or if you're watching or listening on the replay, send us your comments. What did you think of our conversation today? And if you have another subject you'd like us to cover, you just let us know and we'll add it to our list.
Absolutely. So take care of yourselves, and it's okay to have your fantasies.
We highly recommend it, actually.
Indeed. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.